Alright, so for wreath number 1, I just took 2 different grapevine wreaths, a small and a large, and then just some floral wire, and wrap the floral wire around both wreaths a couple times and then give it a twist to secure it. So I did this twice. So I did like one piece of floral wire, wrapped it a few times, twisted it, and then I just repeated the process with the second piece of floral wire just to make sure that they stayed together. And then once that was done, this is totally optional step, but I did this with some fairy lights. So I had 2 little strings of little Christmas fairy lights. I think I got these over the holiday time at Walmart, but you can get them like literally anywhere. Just battery pack. They run off 2 AA batteries. So I made sure to position the battery pack at the top of the small wreath, so at the top of the head of the snowman, and then just wrap the fairy lights around each side of your little snowman wreath. Easy peasy. And then you want to cover the battery packs, and the way I did that was by turning it into a little top hat. So I just took some floral wire and wrapped it around the 2 battery packs just so they would stay together. And then make sure you have the light switch at the top so that you can turn the lights on and off. And if you're not doing the lights, you could just use like a piece of cardboard as like a base for the hat, and then take some felt to make your little hat and cut it in half lengthwise. And then one of those halves gets folded in half lengthwise again and wrapped around, both of them get wrapped around the battery pack. So you kind of lay it down. And so what it's making is a top hat with a rim. So you can like finagle it, like make this as large or small as you want, depending on the size of the wreaths that you're using. And then I just hot glued everything in place. And then I just finished it off with a simple little bow. So I just tied like a little figure 8 bow there with some, it was like an off-white and red check ribbon. Super simple. And then hot glue that bow in place with a sprig of greenery, and you're in business. You've got a little top hat. Next, it was time to make a scarf for my little snowman here. So I wrapped the neck of the wreath with just some of that same red and white check ribbon. And then things got a little wonky here, but I strung up 2 large gold jingle bells on twine. So you just string each end of the twine through the jingle bells and tie a little knot. And the idea is that this is going to hang off the neck of the snowman, but you need the twine to go into the bow that's going to be on the neck as well. So you got to kind of think of your order of operations first. So I hung up the jingle bells, and then I just used some of that same red and white check ribbon. I made like a little figure 8, and I made a couple of them. I do not have a bow maker. I don't use one because I don't make a ton of wreaths and a ton of bows. But this is like the same concept if you've seen like on TikTok videos or Pinterest videos, people making bows for wreaths. The idea is you just want as many figure 8s as you want to make the bow as full as you want. So I did 3 figure 8s, and you just kind of finagle it and then pinch it together in the center. And then I just used half of a pipe cleaner, and I wrapped it around twice and then twisted it in the back. Sometimes when I make smaller bows, I'll just secure it in the center with a piece of ribbon, but on these bigger bows, it's easier to use a pipe cleaner. And then add that twine with the jingle bells, and then another twist of the pipe cleaner, and then everything stays together. And then cover up the pipe cleaner with a piece of ribbon tied with a knot in the back, and then you're in business. And then you can just hot glue the whole bow jingle bell combo to the neck of the snowman wreath, and then trim the ends of the ribbon at a 45-degree angle. And then I used a little lighter to kind of burn the ends so they won't fray. If you're going to do that, please be very, 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 very careful. Thank you. And then just stick some faux berries and greenery at the bottom of the snowman wreath. I just kind of stuck mine in place because I wanted to be able to reuse the wreath form, but you could easily add hot glue to the ends of the berry and greenery sprigs if you want them to have a more permanent hold. That's it, a cute little rustic snowman wreath. Let's move on to wreath number 2. This one is a more farmhouse, classic farmhouse style. So I used these metal wire ring wreath forms, and I used the small and the medium, and then I just saved the large one for a different project. And I needed enough wood beads to cover both of these rings completely. So what I did is I took a little piece of tape and I put it on the end of a length of twine. And then I pulled out like my big hodgepodge jumble of wood beads, and I tried to grab wood beads that were all the same size, and I just strung them up onto my piece of twine. So I'll speed this up. So I strung it up, and the idea was that way I could lay the wood bead twine length around the little wire wreath forms so I could see, okay, I have enough wood beads now measured out that it'll cover both of the wire rings. And then it was time to paint my wood beads because a snowman needs to be white and not wooden. So I just put that string of wood beads into a gallon Ziploc bag, and I added a tiny dab of water and then some white acrylic craft paint. The water just kind of like helps the paint spread out and be like easier and smoother, and it's easier to get coverage, but just zip up that bag and then give the gallon Ziploc bag a good shake, a good squeeze. Just kind of shake it around until all the wood beads are covered. It doesn't have to be perfectly covered. And then I just like pulled the wood bead string out of the Ziploc bag and I hung it up to dry. And then once all that paint had dried, I used my wire cutters and I found like the seam in that wire circle. So once I cut a little break in that wire circle, then I was able to string up all the wood beads onto both of the circles until they were completely filled. And then to re-secure the little wire circles, all I did was add a dab of hot glue inside one of the wood beads. And then I like secured the two ends of the wire together inside of a wood bead. That way everything was held together with hot glue. And I did that on both of the little circles, and then it was time to secure them together. I happened to have white floral wire, so that worked really well. And I just used that to secure the two wood bead circles together to form a snowman shape. Then it was time to decorate and embellish, so I had some black and white check ribbon and some black velvet ribbon. And so what I did is I took just like a piece of cardboard, I cut it into a rectangle, and then I hot glued and covered the cardboard rectangle with the black and white check ribbon. And then from there, I took another piece of floral wire and I strung it through the bottom of that ribbon on the bottom of like the hat, and then was able to then take the wire and secure the hat to the top of the snowman's head. And I kind of like offset it, so you'll see once I finish this up, the hat will be kind of off to the right, and then the embellishments on the bottom of the snowman will be off to the left. You could center it if you want, but I think with it being such a small hat, it looks cute, kind of offset to one side. And next up, I just added some faux pine greenery. This came from Dollar Tree over Christmas, but use whatever you want. Hot glue that in place. And then I made another little simple figure 8 bow with the black velvet ribbon. Cut both ends at a 45-degree angle and hot glued that in place with the greenery as well. Then it was time for more jingle bells. This time I used little mini gold jingle bells from Dollar Tree strung up on twine. I tied 3 of them to individual pieces of twine. That way I could stagger them at different lengths. And these will once again hang off the neck of the snowman. Tie the twine around that floral wire that's holding the top and the bottom of the snowman together. And then you can wrap everything with more black velvet ribbon and add a bow in the center. And then I finished off my snowman. Like I said, you know, the hat was tilted to the right. So then on the bottom left of the snowman body, I added a couple sprigs more of that faux pine, which I just added. I took floral wire and I wrapped it around to secure it. And then some thinner black and white check ribbon to form a bow to cover up the floral wire. Too easy, and I think this is probably my favorite because it's like so farmhouse, but a super classic farmhouse wood bead little snowman wreath. And then finally, for my third wreath, I went to my trusty pom-pom maker. So I grabbed an 8-inch wire wreath form. They came in 2 packs from the Dollar Tree and some white chenille ribbon. I liked this, no, not ribbon, white chenille yarn. Sorry, white chenille yarn. I liked this because it had more like texture and like color variation, and it was like super fuzzy, so it's super cozy for winter. And so I made my small pom-poms and I secured them in the center with a half of a pipe cleaner. So you take a full-length pipe cleaner, just cut it in half, and that worked really well. I'm not going to talk you through how to make pom-poms because the instructions are on like the pom-pom maker. And if you don't have a pom-pom maker, there's like hacks on like TikTok and Pinterest on how to like use a piece of cardboard or a fork to make pom-poms. But I just made a bunch of these pom-poms until I had enough to completely cover the little wreath form. And then you secure them on the back of the wreath with that pipe cleaner. So you just twist it. Super easy. I've made quite a few pom-pom wreaths now. So I'll link to a couple of them in the video description. I think they're really fun to make. I think pom-pom wreaths are like the perfect like Netflix Friday night craft because you can like watch a movie and just make pom-poms. Super fun. Then once I had that wreath completely covered, I used the large pom-pom maker to make one large pom-pom that would be the head of the snowman. So same thing, you're just like wrapping it more times to cover the large pom-pom maker, and then you're gonna secure it in the center again with a full length pipe cleaner. And then once you fluff out that pom-pom, you can secure that to the top of the wreath. And then you have a little head for your snowman body. And the last thing to do is to decorate. So I got these little miniature black pom-poms in the craft section at Michael's, like with the kids stuff. So I just took like one spare orange button from my craft stash to use as a nose, and then the black pom-poms hot glued in place to make an eyes and a smile. Way easy. If you had black buttons, you could use buttons, like use whatever you want. And then I saw this on Pinterest. This was like really viral over the holidays, making little yarn hats using toilet paper tubes. So I thought I would give this a try. So I cut like a half-inch section off a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube or whatever. So then I took green yarn, and this was a really thin green yarn. It's what I had in my craft stash. So I had to double it up because it was so thin. If you had a thicker yarn, you wouldn't have to. But then you loop it around the paper tube, and then you keep doing that until the entire paper tube is covered. So keep cutting lengths of yarn and then loop them over the paper tube. And eventually you'll have something that kind of resembles a hat. So here I have everything covered, and then you take all those yarn tails and you bunch them together and you tie them and secure them with another piece of ribbon. So tie that in like a nice double knot or a bow, and then just I like to use fabric scissors, and then you just trim all those ribbon tails so they're shorter, so it forms a little pom-pom on the top of your little winter yarn hat. And then I also took some yarn that I just doubled up and I formed like a simple braid, and that was going to serve as my scarf. So then I could just hot glue my scarf in place and the little yarn hat to the top of the snowman's head, and we're in business. So this was a little bit smaller of a wreath because I only used an 8-inch wreath form, but super cute and cozy as a winter craft. But that's it. Those are 3 different ways to make a snowman wreath this winter season. If you had a favorite, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. Until next time, happy making!